We'll ball rolling. Welcome, and I am honored to announce that we have Dylan with us from Evergreenminer. Ryan is also going to be helping out as co-host and grabbing a lot of those questions that anybody in the audience might have. If you do have any questions for Dylan, feel free to add them into the Zoom Q&A or utilize the Discord server's community feedback section, and we'll be able to pick those up. Now, over to you, Dylan. You're going to be the star of the show today. Dylan has been involved in the Chia ecosystem for many years now and is the one of the big brains behind the Evergreenminer, a plug-and-play solution for starting up your own Chia farm, and also a plotting as a service provider to help ensure that you have those drives ready to go and in a nice, cool format and setup. So I'm done talking about him. I'm going to let the man talk about himself now. Dylan, if you don't mind telling us about yourself and what is your professional path?
Yeah, so I will start kind of at the beginning. Right now, I'm 25. I started Evergreen a couple, 2, 3 years ago. I've kind of always just been a hardware hacker, really interested in startups. I grew up in Chicago, which was not as much of a, startup hub, but had just a deep love for computers. And I was very privileged to be, building computers in a warehouse, MacBooks, iPhones, like very small electronics when I was, 14, 15 years old. So I spent, a couple years just breaking stuff and trying to figure out how to fix it. And I did have a strong interest kind of in business. So I was in, my business clubs in high school and, starting different projects and, working different internships at a variety of businesses in kind of my local area. And then, kind of toward the end of my high school was the first time I had really launched a product. I put something on Kickstarter, did a small pre-sale of just kind of this like wearable device that I had cooked up, in my school's makerspace. So that went well. It didn't go the distance. I ended up deciding, I was not going to go to college or whatever, but I decided to go to University of Washington, Seattle. I wanted to get out to the West Coast and be in a tech hub, and they have, incredible engineering, talent, big companies. So, long story short, at University of Washington, I did end up dropping out. I spent most of my time working in electrical engineering lab, working on a bunch of different projects, commercialization, med tech, defense, et cetera, just a bunch of different stuff with some very cool professors. But the highlight was that, I actually was very privileged to kind of leverage my first experience building a wearable product to get a job at Amazon in kind of their hardware special projects division. So, that was kind of another 2 years of really grueling work. You've heard about Amazon's culture about trying to create new technical products, paradigm shifts, and really thinking at a very high level how technology evolves. And being in Amazon, you're kind of in this you're not constrained by resources, but there's a lot more constraints that you might not think about. So after doing that, I was also doing another startup at the time and building a bunch of stuff. I decided, I'm not going to do the corporate route. I'm going to drop out of college. I'm just going to work on this one startup that I had been cooking, a different wearable. It was in the event space, and then COVID hit. And so obviously that business, failed pretty much right when COVID hit. I tried my best to keep it going, but at this point it was COVID. I was living out of my buddy's, on my buddy's couch. I didn't have any money. The hardware thing wasn't going anywhere. So I kind of just had to rethink everything I was doing. I was able to, funnily enough, get like a software engineering job, even though I didn't really do much software engineering, saved up a bit of money, and I was going to look for kind of a more hardware job. And as a hobby, I just started GPU mining crypto and, fell in love with it, started selling the rigs, decided I wanted to do something a bit more consumer-esque, found hard drives, found Chia, launched the first product with a couple YouTubers. It went well, built a lot of those like out of the garage, sanding, plotting on two PCs, like sucking power of the place I was renting at, and they were pissed at me. Like all the ugly stuff in the first kind of, 6 months after Chia mainnet was front row seat. I mean, we were shipping devices with full nodes. And that was a total nightmare. So, just that small kind of 50 device run gave me, and then, subsequently, the team that was brought on enough ammo to kind of work on this V2, which you kind of see now. So mobile app, full production scale, modular, kind of the whole nine, bigger marketing campaigns. So that kind of went live V2 in October of not, last year, but the year prior. And that's probably more of the evergreen that everybody knows is kind of, seeing it through a lot of YouTubers, through Bosscoin, shipping to a bunch of people, a more public evergreen that you've seen. And then now, it's maturing a bit more consistency in the business and trying to, find different areas to expand. Obviously, as crypto gets hotter, seeking out growth becomes a bit less important. But, as a technology company, I don't like to just say, oh, well, when crypto pumps, then we're going to get a bunch of users. That's less interesting to me, but that's also the reality of kind of how the business works. So balancing those two things has been kind of one of the main themes for a while.
Yeah, that is excellent. Thank you so much for the deep dive into your backstory as well as kind of the foundation of Evergreen Miner there as well. You did mention kind of you were at a point where you were looking to make something more consumer based. You found Chia, you found hard drives. Can you go a little bit more into what led you to Chia? What was the first thing that you learned about, and why did you settle on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a couple things about Ethereum that I didn't like. Well, I did like GPUs in the extent that I could go to Micro Center and pick it up, and like it wasn't that hard to build, but there was annoyances. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't shippable, right? If I needed to sell it, somebody had to come over and I had to, and then if it didn't work, like, you know, hey, why does my thing not work? Like it's not very easy, everybody with GPUs, it's very different, right? It's a bit trickier of a trade. Not to mention my dad came down after a month and was like, this thing's got to go. Like you like, I don't care if you pay me energy or not. Like I'm not burning the paint off my wall for your business, right? And he supported me, but he was like, this doesn't work. And then the final thing was a lot of the people I was selling to, I was talking, okay, what's the plan? You're doing this, how are you thinking about the merge? What's the merge? I'm uh, like this whole rig is going to be useless, right? Like, so the idea that, that they could kind of just append the existing consensus mechanism and kind of really hurt a lot of the business that had been created. NVIDIA was a huge benefactor to this. Um, that was very disappointing to me. So immediately when I found Chia, I did not understand kind of the depths of it. I kind of just had that very high level, like, oh, like, really good team. Hard drives are selling out. Hard drives, Raspberry Pi, like that's what I know. And in the same vein, like I could just go on Amazon, spend $200 and like work on a prototype. And like my 3D printer, right? It fit these boxes. I couldn't do 3D printing for the GPUs because I didn't have a big enough 3D printer, right? Wasn't a Raspberry Pi. Couldn't put a GPU. So it was very serendipitous in the sense that most of the work that I had done was kind of like small electronics. And going from wearables to like something like this was so much easier. So it was very opportunistic. Uh, and then I met people in the community, and then I got to know the team a bit more. And then, I got to understand UTXO quite a bit more. And that all became very exciting, and it started to unlock different ideas about how I see the hardware platform evolving over time beyond a miner, right? And that was kind of the first chapter of going from, hey, there's this really good opportunity to build a better miner to, holy crap, like this technology could be the future of operating systems for consumer electronics, could be the future of the way that people buy devices, could be the future of, hard drive manufacturing, single board computers, etc. That is kind of what dug me a lot deeper, because if it had just been, okay, a nice opportunity to sell it, I might have just got in and got out and found the next opportunity. But what really made me decide this is something I want to work on for a long period of time was, the platform and all the pieces coming together inspired me to be able to create something much more than, plug it in and make money, which is great, by the way. Like plugging it in and make money is great, but there's got to be more than that. And I think we're going through this right now. Like, why do people farm and mine? It has to be more than just making money. We all understand that. And battling that reality where it is both a key driver of demand, but also like potentially the biggest negative feature is that, oh, this thing doesn't make money. That is the problem that, one of the main problems that I've set out to solve in trying to integrate crypto into hardware and consumer hardware. And have felt that proof of space time gets as close as possible to it. And obviously we're going through a lot of thought around that now as we have a new plot format. But it's very relevant that ultimately, and we can dive more into this, you're trying to, basically fight capitalism, right? You're trying to fight this idea that if I just throw more resources into something, my economies of scale will be better. And, the richer get richer, and the gravitational pull of wealth, um, down to the way that the plot format is designed, is something that it's trying to resist against. And that is a very foundational and kind of interesting challenge that I think is worth, spending time on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you mentioned, it's definitely a big tee up or a foundation for what the future of Chia will be. And I think that would be kind of a great next question is, you being involved in other cryptocurrencies, coming over to Chia and being kind of at the ground level when mainnet was launching, and getting involved and buying all these hard drives. And as you say, plotting with those really long plot times initially and seeing what those hurdles were. What is kind of your experience of your time entering Chia? What were your initial expectations? And what are kind of your thoughts as to how things are going for that foundation of the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of expectations, right, everybody's super hopeful. Oh, I found something that nobody else has found. You know, the world will catch up, and then the value that I put in now will be multi-xed because I helped to build the framework for something that eventually the market realizes is very valuable. Right. So the expectation for everybody is like, I have found something that other people haven't found, and therefore it's worth spending my time on. Right. The idea of going to another chain that's saturated and trying to compete, it's interesting. Competing on, merit, I'm going to be a better infrastructure provider than Infura. Fine, but it's crowded, it's difficult, right? So pure plays are very interesting, but they're very difficult. And I think, they're not for the faint of heart because there are, the pits of despair where people don't get it, or, can't see kind of through the light. Um, and that's kind of very high level, but you ask about my expectations. I mean, it's hard, right? Because without getting into specific detail, it's like, it's not about what I expected from specific people or specific events to happen, right? That's here nor there. What, the higher level thing is, look, we all are expecting some appreciation, some realization of value on some period of time that allows you, at the very least, to be able to operate, businesses, have kind of a thriving economic ecosystem. So in terms of reality, I think most people would be comfortable admitting it's a very difficult reality to try and build the groundwork of something that not a lot of people recognize is, potentially the groundwork for the new internet. Um, so how has that changed my expectations? I think it has brought me closer to kind of reality, in that, I'm not really holding out for this like sudden, oh my God, like everybody now realized Chia was the thing. Like, that's not, I think that was an expectation for me for a while, of like, one day I'm going to wake up and everybody's going to catch up. I just don't think that's like realistic anymore. I think that when things are successful, like, people see it, it's transparent, it moves. I think Evergreen is a really good example of that, of the way that we built momentum in the right places to get the distribution. It wasn't just about building this, oh, it's low power. Like, we knew the narrative. We gave the distribution channels like a meme to hold on to, right? GPU mining is dead. That was like the timing and all this stuff. So, in terms of bringing that back to expectations now, I think, my my expectation is that there will be some emerging narrative that Chia is able to capitalize on. It will not be fast and overnight. It will be a moment of seizing the opportunity. And my expectation is that the people who have worked on this will be ready to seize that opportunity. But it's gone from I'm going to wake up and it's going to happen to I'll probably know I'll know it's happening, and ideally I'll be a part of it, right? So that's kind of the way that I think about it now. In terms of specifics, maybe I'll pass it back to you because it's a very broad question. So maybe if you wanted to dive into any kind of particular angle, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I think, what you were touching on previously with what the plot format does for us and the change of the plot format moving forward is going to be instrumental to bring back that embrace of, like what you said, GPU mining is dead, and what is the next step? And of course, it's not GPU mining on Chia, it's compression on Chia. And there's always going to be some room for it. And as you've identified within your Pi compute modules, you can even do some of that directly through a low-end CPU. So there's some great opportunity there. And I know I really appreciate all the things that you and your team have done and all the information that you provide to us as well from your experience with all of these farmers. So thank you in that regard. I think where I'd like to move it to is back to Evergreenminer. And one of the things that I think is hidden is part of the design of your actual miners themselves or your farmers themselves. And I think it's beautiful. Obviously, the color is eye-catching. The way you design them to interlock via the logo. Do you mind just going into detail as to,
Yeah,
who designed it, what were the thoughts behind it, and what are some of these other cool Easter eggs that might be hidden in the design?
sure. So I'm an industrial designer. That was the first thing I did was 3D printing. So that's me. Like that's my, if I lost everything, I'd probably go back to work as an industrial designer. I love Apple. I love teenage engineering. I love another one is Playdate. I have a lot of inspirations for how I do my design. Simplicity is king. Something that I one of the key themes, tacky is kind of one of the words, but like candy is what I say a lot of. Like I want it to be like something that you could pick up and like almost like want to take a bite out of, right? Um, so that was like a big inspiration for me. It very much evolved like a lot, and I'll kind of put it into two things, which was the first one was every a hard drive and a Raspberry Pi in the box, and it was like super simple and kind of big, but it was very difficult to produce. I had to sand it super hard, and then if there was something wrong, it was like this big heavy thing. And then like, what if you wanted to add drives? Well, then we were going to do the expansion, and then I was like, well, wait, like, what if I just do all expansions and right? So that was like kind of the V2, and actually, so here's a little known secret. If you guys know Morgan Bender, he hasn't been as active recently, but very early on was active. He was the one who actually helped me commit to this modular kind of starter kit design because he said, another theme was stocking stuffer, right? So something very approachable, stocking stuffer, modular. Those were all requirements that I knew of because having done a lot of this, it was like, oh, well, if I buy this NAS, like I have to get 8. What if I just want 5, right? Like, what if my budget's not that? What if I just want to expand once a month? Like, and so battling all these requirements was a difficult piece of it. So phase one was kind of just get something out quick, chunky box. Phase two of the design was refining it to fit those requirements, just kind of a high level requirement, modular and looks good and small. And then the third phase of that, the most, kind of important was design for manufacturing. Most people don't get there. Like, right. They ship it off to the production, and then they go back and forth and they say, this doesn't work. My team, once they started having to build these, hey, you got to build 20 a week. Hey, you got to build 50 a week. Then, shit starts to break again. And it's like, dude, this thing is way too thin. Oh, this wall sucks. Oh, like there's not enough ventilation. Oh, this. And that was a whole nother design effort. And I needed to keep the same form factor, but fix everything inside to make it, we had a rule, no glue, right? Dylan, because I'm like, screw it, guys. Like quit being, whatever, just glue it. And they're like, dude, like you don't get it, like no glue, right? I wasn't on the line at the time. So I was doing it remotely and just, hey, okay, 3D print this. I'll send you a 3D print this. So that was like kind of phase two. And the coolest thing is when we did move from 3D prints to injection molds, like I had gotten it like 90% of the way there. They only had to make a couple tweaks and that was it. And that was because I actually had to like go through a bunch of these manufacturing challenges. And then and then you learn about how a mold is made, and luckily enough, I was close enough where nothing really had to be changed that much. So that was like the phase of the design. In terms of the other Easter eggs, I'll just drop we're adding another color. So I think we're gonna move from like kind of special edition to like maybe choose your own. So that's we're gonna have a lineup of colors. I feel like that's really critical, really interesting. Let's see. I mean, in terms of the other Easter eggs, I don't know if I would say, specifically there's a ton of other Easter eggs at the moment. Simplicity, snapping the stuff together. The one of the nice ones was the screws are under the feet on the bottom. Everybody always loves that. So you can't see any of the screws. Um, you know, it's very pretty. If you have one, open it and look at it. It's really, I mean, that's definitely some of my best work. And as I keep making different renders and colors, like it is a very timeless design. I think the next time I'm gonna exert that level of energy into a design is probably gonna be when everything transitions to SSDs. I'm hoping that this design is gonna stick for the next several years. So that's the main thing with the actual design. And then outside of that, the work done on the power supply cabling and all that, that was kind of like the big side quest, was to make a lot better cabling power supplies. And there's still more to be done there. That might change the design very slightly, but that's kind of revision C of the cable management, just because that's the one thing you lose when you move away from the NAS is, instead of with the NAS, you only have one cable. Every drive has to have power and data. It gets a little tricky, really, kind of quickly. But I'm proud to say that our current power supply can power up to 20 drives and the hub with one plug. And to set it up now with the new power supply is like 5 minutes. So it's solving the challenges, having the real world experience, and then being able to rapidly iterate is like that's how really good products are made. You don't just because on a kind of a side tangent, when I worked at Amazon, um, I worked with industrial. They had a team of 10 industrial designers, and I did work as an industrial designer, and man, the politics and like, oh, I was working on something that involved kids, and we were sitting behind a glass watching kids and asking parents feedback, and it was like, there's a lot of reasons why stuff like that is difficult in and of itself, but it was just like, yo, like let's just put something in front, like it's all obvious, like it's so obvious when you're actually like doing something and it's in front of people, like what works and what doesn't. But when you're kind of stuck in this lab environment, it's like you're not doing anything, right? You're just kind of like, you know, I could use some harsh words, but ego swinging, right? It's like, so avoiding that is important. But then, of course, I'm the designer. I'm kind of an artist in that way. So, I'm hard pressed to, the feedback, and I like to have my process. So there's always these challenges of like, you want to keep your process, you don't need to listen to people, but then you have to take feedback and integrate that. And that's, where if you think about the brain like a neural net, like my neural network for industrial design is, I think, pretty far along in being able to take in feedback, pin requirements, take field feedback, take design feedback, and kind of that's the role of a really good product manager, is to kind of marry all those things together. So anyway, that's kind of my long tangent, but yeah, I'd consider myself an artist before I'd consider myself an engineer, or a business person for that matter. So that is definitely me. I take a lot of pride in that.
And you can definitely tell you have a lot of passion for it as well, and it speaks volumes through the product you created, and then also you going through the design phase. I mean, thank you very much. That was a beautiful recap of it, and I think that leads us beautifully into kind of the next topic, and it's not only do you focus that much on the design of the hardware, but you've obviously spent a lot of the time, and you and the team, on designing software to make things work properly and efficiently and effectively. And so before we dive too much into the fast farmer, I think a good segue is, what are kind of your main market differentiators? How do you set yourself apart from other plotting as a service providers or pre-plotted drive providers or other solutions that might kind of fall in the same realm?
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of go higher level and kind of bucket a couple pieces of software that you need to have that I think we're really far along on. So anytime you're doing any sort of IoT stuff, you need, OTA, the ability to update stuff, security, custom operating system, obviously a lot of customer support. Things are going to go wrong. You got to be able to identify issues, ideally fix them in the field. But then when you don't fix them in the field, you have to manage returns and replacements. Like that's just a fact as you scale, right? Especially as an early company, even if you hit 90%, hey, 90% of the devices we shipped were perfect. 10% is a huge number, like at scale, right? So all the software to manage orders and customer service, which, is still a struggle, was a lot of software. Um, the operating system, I mean, that's a 3-year old evolving, multiple people have touched it. The mobile app with a mobile wallet that sets up your device and monitors your device, the way that, the farmer communicates with the pool, and we can kind of separate fast farmer, but all that stuff. And then our back end infrastructure to run nodes, to, make sure that we have as much, high uptime with the nodes, to make sure we have the OTA updates, to make sure we're capturing metrics, and then the internal software, to manage the plotting at scale. It's a massive code base. Like I'm just throwing it out there. It is a massive code base. My role is that I usually kind of start most of the projects, not all of them, but I start a lot of the projects in Python, HTML, 2-week sprint, 1-month sprint, and then I hand it over to our brilliant CTO who polish it. I wouldn't even say polishes it. He rewrites it in Rust. It's like makes it legit. Like he uses my shit as a reference, and then just like rewrites it all to actually be good production code. So it's a massive orchestra. In terms of, you know competitive advantage, there, again, back to the point of like scale, right? It's very hard to beat economies of scale, these kind of wealth and maybe wealth is not the right word, but capital and supply chain is a bit of a black hole, in the sense that as it builds more gravity, suppliers want to send you more stuff quicker, faster, right? So from that competitive perspective, being able to spin up and have a lot of capacity is a competitive advantage to do a lot of these things, and to have set up all the systems to do things. It enables us to, offer better pricing. And there's disadvantages that come at scale, right? Like customer support is a very difficult challenge at scale. Reliability is a very big challenge at scale. It's easy to manage 10 devices. It's hard to manage 1,500 devices. Right. And then, the first device that we shipped to today actually looks like quite a different device. So all the software, we shipped with 3 different versions of a single board computer, multiple versions of an operating system. Every single one of them has to get the same over-the-air updates, right? So the complexity of the scale is an advantage. It's also something that is expensive to maintain. And so, out of necessity, we have to continue to innovate and to push and to be a leader in the space. And competitors have only helped push, right? That's kind of the beauty is, when we're faced with competition or different ways of thinking, it really helps. And you're even seeing it now kind of in the minutia of like asking the question about how plots are generated in a secure way. We've been the only people really asking that question. I'm excited that other people are looking at that, because it's always this problem that we're trying to solve, that we tried many different ways to do it. So in terms of competitive advantage, it's scale. I do think, I'd like to think that my design is one of my biggest competitive advantages. Our ability to design as a team, and then our ability to do software is a big advantage. But at the end of the day, competition is really healthy, and it's really good for people to think of things that other people might not have thought of, or that just like wasn't possible because we were scaling too fast and just couldn't capture some solution. So I think that answers the question pretty good. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. And as you mentioned, it's not just the hardware side, it's not just the software side, but there's a lot of the back end that you guys have already set up and are doing very well. And to that point, as you mentioned, there's a lot of additional expenditure that you had to put in order to get this whole thing set up, and then of course the actual cost for producing hardware and custom hardware at that. We do have a question from one of our community members focused on that equity funding side, and it's, are you looking to raise equity funding? If so, What for, and how can one invest?
Sure, yeah. Super open. We've definitely, had kind of angel investors to date. We haven't done a large VC round. So in terms of angel investors, yeah, super open to it. We're actually expanding in a variety of areas right now. I'd say the two, kind of key things that are interesting, whole nother topic, but we're expanding our facility and it's kind of operating as a data center. We're exploring stuff in the GPU space. That is very hot and very interesting, and I think will only provide a lot more, diversity in the way that we operate the business to allow for more innovation. Specifically on the Chia side, most of it is software right now, adding more functionality to our application, getting more users right into our ecosystem. What I had envisioned Evergreen and still envision Evergreen, although it's taken longer for us to get there, is something that you go to Best Buy and buy, right? And as much as love Chia, it's great. I don't want people to have to think about it being Chia or this or that. I just want people to plug something in, click on the app and say, "Oh, this is super cool." And go back, every day and, "Oh, now I, collected some coins, played a game, whatever." So that is really where, kind of the two buckets of funding right now are expanding our facility to kind of, be a better base for the business. And then doing that hard kind of artistic work of trying to find, or trying to develop that end-to-end Best Buy experience that I think everybody who has seen Evergreen and kind of gets it wants to see happen. But it is, I mean, you're talking about Apple level, to get to Best Buy. That's not easy. And I think for me, I'm patient. We're just chipping away. But that's what, back to the ask of an equity investment. Reach out to me, super open to angel checks. There are very easy ways to do it. And that would go right into, kind of feeding the developers, right? Feeding developers, maybe potentially expanding the roadmap a little bit, but probably also just tying up a lot of our, loose ends and functionality of stuff. But we're doing a lot of cool stuff. Like I can drop some alpha. We're putting in Tangum wallet. We're going to be adding notifications. We're going to be doing kind of the browser in the app stuff. So the dApps will be a lot easier to see. But the current status of kind of the Chia ecosystem, and that there isn't a lot of volume, makes these things very much, not profitable in the short-term expenditures. And that's again where kind of the equity financing can help, as it can blow out that time horizon. So instead of saying, how do we build something and then make money off of it now, it's, how do we build something and over time kind of build a lot of value that ideally we can wait for, whether it's more people to get into crypto or whether it's an integration or this or that, all these things to kind of come together and have a new virality for the product. And that, so I hope that answers the question, but please reach out, super open. We've taken angel checks. We haven't done a large kind of round. It's on the horizon, but want to do it at the right time with the right partners who really believe in what we're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. And for those who do want to get in contact with Dylan, he is always in the Evergreen Discord. He's also on X or Twitter quite often, and he jumps into the Chia Discord as well from time to time. So I know you can find him in all those places to continue that conversation or ask him additional questions. I want to touch on a couple of the things that you've mentioned throughout this conversation, and it's the rest of your team. And obviously, you're a great developer, you're a great designer and an architect of the hardware, but it takes more than one person. Do you mind just kind of overviewing what are some of the key members of your team and what are their responsibilities?
Yeah, so I think the big highlight is Luna at the CTO space, or filling the CTO role. So me and Luna met. It's over 3 years ago now. He was helping me with this initial problem of securely creating plots, and he was helping me for free before we really had much traction. And I didn't know, I couldn't even put a face to a name. And he just again took kind of my very basic concepts and spun something up very fast, and I was very impressed. And then finally, when we were able to kind of bring him on, he pushed the agenda. He said, "No, I'm coming. All right, I'm coming on. Here's the deadline where I'm leaving my job. Figure it out." And so Luna and actually his housemate, got pulled in. They already had a bunch of servers in their place. They were, very eager to bring production to the garage. We ended up building a server room in their house construction. And so the roommate does a lot of stuff, but he's kind of the server czar. Built all the servers, manages the plotting, has touched every hard drive that's gone through our operation, among a bunch of other stuff, software, front end design, etc. So that's kind of, the crew at the house. And then one of their other partners, we kind of joke around and call him the wolf. He has helped, set up a lot of the automation, make sure everybody stays in line in production. We've got a crew of, kind of revolving 2, 3 people in production, but that's changed over time. Um, and then we do have another part-time developer helping out with the mobile app. But things kind of evolved. It kind of grows, shrinks. We have partners who are not necessarily on the team that help with stuff, but the core team is the people who build the devices and the people who kind of maintain the software around that whole process. And then customer service, of course. We have you might see Jacob Hollis is kind of on Twitter. He's picked up a lot of the reins on customer support. Does an awesome job. He's learned so much in the last couple months, or I mean, it's been several months now. But yeah, it's an awesome team, and kind of I've gone from day to day answering. I mean, I was doing customer service for the first 6 months, slowly weaned off of that, and it was painful to do that, to ignore. It sucks. But my role very quickly became feeding the team, right? Making sure that the team had the right things to do, was unblocked, and that we were going to be able to sustain and achieve our goals as a team. And so that's really where my role has shifted, among dropping in and solving technical issues. But it's gone from me. I mean, a year ago, man, it was just grind all day, every day for I think 3 or 4 months. When we got a bunch of orders, it was solve technical challenges every single day, get orders out the door. It's very much shifted to create a really good base for the team, make sure everybody's communicating, make sure we have a constant flow of new opportunities, and that it's been rewarding to do that. And the only way you get there is if you have a team you can trust to kind of do these things, right?
Absolutely, most certainly. And one of the things you mentioned there are, or alluded to, were the various partnerships that you formed as well. So not only are you working with this great internal team, but you've gone out and made partnerships within the community, within the ecosystem
Yeah.
as a whole. And part of that led to the Fast Farmer. Do you mind covering different partnerships that you've been involved with? And then we can segue into that Fast Farmer. And I know we want to touch on that for quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the idea of creating a light farmer was something that was concocted immediately when I realized that running the stock farmer on Raspberry Pis was not as it was chalked up to be. For anybody who's done it, I get it. Try and do it, thousands of times. It's not easy. So, a light farmer was very important. I pounded on the door. Shout out JM, who really helped me get the idea of a light farm over the line at Chia. We got a small grant for it. Very appreciative of that. The light farmer evolved into fast farmer, which was very much James's concoction. He said, because we had to follow Chia's spec for the grant, he said, let's just throw the spec out the door and see what we get, right? Um, so as we were working on that, uh, and we were doing compression, and we integrated, James integrated new proof of space, blade bit compression from the ground up, from zero. Incredibly impressive. Right when we finished that, of course, Mad Max, had to release an even better compression. So between that and Chip 22, we were running the light farmer. James was building the fast farmer kind of on the side. And then, me and one of Max's teammates have been talking quite a bit about just different ways that we could work together. Finally, we decided, hey, we should really do a legit partnership and kind of become your official client for distributing Gigahorse. And, that was about 6 months ago, and we've been cooking it. And then, it was ready. And then Gigahorse 3 came out, and we were like, okay, now we got to do this. So it's great. It's fun, partnerships and adding more people. It always creates, more things to keep track of, but it also combines, the power of James and the power of Max. Really is it's a very awesome thing to see, and watching them feed off of each other, watching them fill gaps in each other's knowledge. And, Max is awesome. Max, you've probably seen him in chats, but just getting to know Max more and how brilliant of a developer he is and kind of the way he thinks about stuff has been super rewarding. And then, I'll even mention recently just chatting with Nick too, Dr. Nick. Nothing concrete there, but he's a great guy, super sharp. We love talking about plot format, right? Of course, right? So to just be able to, you know, um, ruminate with people who have different perspectives, who are kind of on this other side of a plot vendor, right? And having flown so close to that for so long, it feels nice to kind of be, have a crew of folks that we can spitball about this, that isn't necessarily CNI, not in a bad way, but just it's different set of opinions, right? Competing formats in a way, right? So it's been very rewarding to work alongside Max on some of this stuff, see how he thinks about stuff. And then, in terms of partnerships beyond that, you've seen we've worked with Voscoin, we've worked with Tangang, we've worked with a variety of other YouTubers. Those kind of brand partnerships is really one of the big evolutions that I see for Evergreen, getting us out of this kind of speculative moat and into more utility. Very open to do that stuff. Tangang is kind of a rare entity. I'd love to find more Tangangs, but I'm patient. I'm sure more will come around. But that model for, you know, create a custom device, create an NFT, unboxing experience, I feel like that's the model that's really going to win in the short term, is creating these kind of small, physical server communities and connecting them through their devices with Chia as kind of a backbone. Is I know Tangang gets it. Um, I think other creators will start to understand it as they can publish stuff. It's a big lift. It's a big risk in that, oh, maybe this doesn't work. But what I really like about these types of partnerships is they work just in the partnership, right? They work because we're providing value to a community of people, and that's distribution. That's a good model right away. And it gets more people onboarded. And it's not this like, hey, we're going to build it and then hopefully we're going to find partners. It's like, we're only going to build it when we find the partners who can distribute it. And that's a very important tenant at Evergreen, is like, for me, like, I'm not going to build something without the buy-in, and the buy-in to the extent that it's a launch plan, right? And people disagree with the methodology, but it's through the things that I learned at Amazon, where sure, if you got $1 billion to blow on a product, fine. But in a capacity constrained environment, in an environment where the not even the best product, but the best tech, but the best product will win. A huge part of product is, how do people find it and why do they get it? And you know, people haven't studied placement on a shelf as an entire industry for no reason. It's because it matters, right? It's because the thing at the middle is the thing that attaches your attention. Right in front of you is the thing that makes you want to buy it, right? The thing at the bottom of the shelf, it might be the best thing since sliced bread, but it's at the bottom of the shelf, right? And so when we talk about partnerships, we're talking about, how do we get to the middle of the shelf? And Tangang, the middle of the shelf, right? It's sold out in like a day because it's at the middle of the shelf. So that's the way that I think about partnerships. And Mad Max is another great example. We partner with Mad Max to distribute the software because he is an incredible distribution partner, right? Whether he knows it or not, people listen to what he's saying. He's an influencer in this space. And so that's like, whenever we think about partnerships, it has to do that, right? It has to create mutual benefit. And we have a really awesome product. We got to put it in front of the right audience, and that's a really important part of how we think about partnerships.
Absolutely, absolutely, and very exciting, all of the different partnerships that you've been involved with, and all of these new ones that you're working on as well, to forge forward with new hardware and new software, and extremely exciting.
Yeah.
For all of those listening, we're coming near the end of the questions that we have had sent to us and that we had ready to go. If you do have any questions, please use the Zoom Q&A, or also inside of the Discord server, you can use the community feedback channel. We're monitoring both. But Dylan, I do have a few more questions, and I want to do a full circle back to where this all started. And it goes to your point of, you want to work on consumer hardware, something for the end user.
Yep.
So let's talk about the farmers. What are your thoughts about the farmers? What are your recommendations or advice for somebody who's just getting into Chia?
I mean, buying ever? No, I'm just kidding. Uh, yeah, I mean, so for someone just getting into Chia, what I've noticed, right, at least in my cohort, is there it I'm a fairly technical person. I've touched computers since I was very young. It took me a year to really wrap my head around it, and then everything changed, right? So my expectation that, what kind of got me into Chia of like, hey, I'm gonna be on this network and like nothing's gonna change, and that's really awesome, and I'm gonna build a business on that. I don't think that is as much reality as we think. We can hope, right? Maybe the new plot format comes out and it's good for 10 years and like awesome. I would proceed with the idea that you will want to be active if you are a farmer. There are a lot of set and forget farmers, but right, if you're putting your heart, if you're putting your time and your money into something, ideally you're doing, you either understand it's set and forget and you say, I'm offloading that kind of risk to a company like Evergreen, who's going to spend all their time figuring this out for me, or I'm prepared to, to keep up and spend the time. And again, I'm not discluding the set and forget farmers, but I have to say, like, the people who actively continually involve and invest in the network will be rewarded more, and they should be, because they're the people who are bringing us forward, advancing the technology, right? The idea that we all spin up a Chia farm, turn it off, move away, that's not really an idea that drives engagement, right? Like, if everybody in Ethereum staked and then walked away, there'd be no reason why there should be more value. So in my opinion, as a farmer, whether you're getting in through Evergreen, whether you're getting, in on, for yourself, uh, being active and understanding that the value you provide beyond your hardware can be in evangelizing or bringing forward, partnerships, or even just being a voice in the community. Those go hand in hand. Not to say, it's not a bad thing if you want to set and forget, that's great, but then you're leaving your control to just other people. Fine. And if you're going to do that, I really think like we've done a really good job of being a good steward of the technology for people who do want a more passive experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you identified, there's different levels of farmers. The set and forget. You have the ones who are active on a daily basis, who, you have BW free, who's replotting every other month, and there's a lot of different levels. And we've started seeing a lot more large farmers come out. So Hema from Chia in China actually had a great question on the enterprise side of things, and I'm going to read what he's posted here. I think chia farmers are more suitable for enterprises as part of their cash flow guarantee. For example, in China, so many enterprises have difficulty getting paid from their clients' triangle debt. If they have chia farmers as part of their investment, they will no longer have to worry about not being able to receive payment and not being able to pay employees. So, kind of the wraparound question here, though, is more so focused on the enterprise side. And it's, does Evergreen have an enterprise level farmer plan? And what are your thoughts about working with enterprises?
Yeah. I mean, it's on our site. Like, we sell enterprise kits. We've been selling enterprise kits. We've shipped, you know, dozens of petabytes. And we also, with this new facility, we do hosting now as well. So if you're more of a traditional storage provider, you want to work with a DC, but you want to add Chia to kind of add additional cash flow, totally. We're not pushing as hard because we just don't have the capacity right now. If somebody approaches and says, "Hey, I want to build this," we work with them to do it. It's a good business. It's different from the consumer, but I think there's a ton of validity in it. And I think that there's a lot of overlap in saying, how can storage be generally more useful? The caveat is, with the replotting, it becomes harder to justify, because if you have to replot, now you have to add an additional set of software, equipment, and management. That becomes a bit more of a challenge. So would we work with enterprises to do that? Absolutely. I think we're in a bit of a limbo right now, and that we just don't even know what the specs are. So it's hard for me to kind of give a good plan to an organization other than, hey, like, wait, or if you host with us or you work with us as a consumer, that's kind of our commitment, is to make sure that you will have as little downtime as possible, even if it includes a replot. That's again kind of what you pay for when you work with an entity. If you're looking to do it kind of on your own or as an independent enterprise, I think we are definitely in a, we kind of have to figure out what the new requirements are going to be first.
Most certainly, most
But
certainly.
yes,
And
if you want to do enterprise stuff, we do it all. We ship, we host, we'll do support, etc. Remote support, remote hands. So reach out if you want to get a large scale farm.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, reach out to Dylan. Again, I'm just going to reiterate: you can find him on Twitter, you can find or X, you can find him on Discord in the Evergreen server, inside of the Chia server as well. And he's always available to answer questions and help out where he can. And I think you touched on a really good part there, and it's kind of the experiences that you've learned throughout the process and ways that you've integrated that into your hardware, into your software. And this is a question from Andrew in the Discord as well. It's going to be a little bit lengthier, so I'm going to break it into a couple of parts. The first part is, what has been the most surprising thing about developing for Chia and Chia Lisp versus your previous experiences? And are there any "I wish I knew this in the beginning" moments or insights that you can share with other developers?
Um, so I don't do Chia Lisp. I'm just gonna throw it out there. So do you just want me to kind of pretend the question doesn't ask about Chia Lisp or
Yeah. Just focus on the development with Chia side. You generally, as you mentioned earlier, you're not doing all of the code base yourself, but you do a lot of the rumination, a lot of the
sure.
ideation. Yep.
Um, it's a tough question because there's like a technical piece and a social piece to it. Maybe I'll address both. Like the technical piece, all blockchain development is very difficult. Ethereum is a very advanced ecosystem. Yeah, there's like tools out there that make it super simple, but like the more simple you get, the less control you have. And in a blockchain environment, that's a very difficult thing to grapple with. Was that unanticipated? Not particularly. I mean, again, I think like, more on the social side. Uh, and without, it's there's a debate here. So I'm not like pinning this as the thing, but um I took a stance of justifying all these decisions around Chia Lisp and UTXO and this and that. Like, no matter what, I'm just going to justify it. I've taken a step back because I've looked into things like Move, and you see how mature the Ethereum ecosystem is. And then you also see, just being frank, like bugs come up with Chia Lisp. So I feel like there's a discrepancy between what the selling points are and the reality. Like, sorry, like apologies, but you're not just going to come into an environment that's like bug free, right? And like you're not going to be able to just ship code that works. Like that's not reality, and that's not reality necessarily in Ethereum, but at the very least there's like a ton of examples and robot like there's a ton of things that have actually been built out that have ran for years. So, you know, just take it with a grain of salt when people say like UTXO and Chia Lisp is just better because it's better. Like there are technical reasons why UTXO is better. I think people understand that. There are very much reasons why Chia Lisp is very difficult. And again, you could say, oh, well, it should be difficult. No, I don't think we want to create an environment where like only the smartest people can do something. Like that's not a welcoming environment. Like that's not how amazing application ecosystems evolve. And there's a lot of very amazing things about Ethereum and Solana that we have to take lessons from. There are a lot of not so good things about it, but there's a lot of not so good things about where we're at, within Chia right now. These are realities, right? We can't live in kind of, I'll just call it an echo chamber of like everything is better because it's better. That's not how you grow, right? You that's how you stay stagnant. Um, growing is, what do other people do? What can we learn from them? How can we work with them? And ultimately, how do we meet people where they're at and be open to doing that? So we're early in Chia, and so it's going to be hard to do that. But yeah, surprise, but also it's like more just like a change of expectation of like, wow, this is just amazing. Like this is the best thing ever. Like removing that veil is important to do. And I would encourage people who are very serious about building on Chia because it's Chia to understand that. Like we're not it's not just better because it's better because people are going to spend time making it better, and they're going to struggle with the same things that other people who have worked incredibly hard on other chains to get there will have to go through those same struggles. It's just a fact. I hope nothing bad happen, right? But that's unreasonable, right? To say, oh, we're going to launch everything and it's going to be perfect. That's just not reasonable, and it's just not responsible. So I would encourage any people trying to get into, GLISP to be responsible for the fact that this is like green grass. It's new. You're probably going to go through similar exploits. even though, yes, there are a lot of things about Chia Lisp that are better, the challenges will be there as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there that um, the majority of people trying to get into Chia Lisp, it is a whole new language. It does have its own challenges and its own hurdles. And as you identified, we've seen that through different exploits and different puzzles that existed.
Well, I'll
But
just be,
it's yeah.
one quick 1 minute tangent. We saw this recently. Some dude made a Chia wallet very early on that had like a ridiculous amount of Chia in it, and
Hmm.
it was exploitable, right? And so
Exactly.
luckily, the team at Chia found it and did it. But like, if that didn't happen,
Hmm.
what is everyone going to say? Oh, Chia's like unexploitable. Like there had been many instances of these bugs. Like very happy that the team came in and did it, but what I see is like this pointing the finger, oh, other people don't mess up. And it's like that could have very easily been a huge mess up. To bet swap, hash green, both of them had a mess up. Like let's not forget what we're doing here, right? Let's not forget that we are in the groundwork of building out new technology. We have to expect that it will break, right?
Hmm.
And we will have
Hmm.
to expect that it will take time to get right. And this is coming back to my point. There's going to be no, we wake up and the ETH bridge is live and there's $1 billion on it. That's not going to happen. What hopefully will happen is it's a low and slow growth where we find bugs along the way. And every time we find a bug, it gets more and more robust, right? That's the reality of a thing that grows is it fails, it grows, it fails, it grows. And I understand that the tolerance for failure on blockchains is very low, but it's even worse when you say that there's no bugs ever at all, right? So that's my forewarning is like assume you're gonna mess up and work from that principle. Because that's how stuff works. You assume you're gonna mess up and do what you can to prevent it, but be very ready to fix it. Which CNI has done. They have fixed these things, which is awesome.
Hmm. I think that's a perfect segue into the other part of Andrew's question here as well. And he wanted to give you some props to start off and say, you have managed to successfully bootstrap and build a consumer hardware and software business, which is famously hard to do. So well done in that regard. Big shout out from Andrew to you as to what you have done with Evergreenminer. And to your point about the things you've learned, those key takeaways. What do you think have been some of the key things that you did right throughout the process in order to get to where you are now? And what are some things that you would change in the future to get to that next level? Kind of like that, maybe that partial redesign to help with the cabling. And then, of course, that ties in what are some key pitfalls that should be avoided?
Yeah. Ah, man. So it's super hard, right? The whole TLDR about kind of starting new stuff is you're just operating on fine lines. And in particular, one of these fine lines is that a lot of the growth that we experience that a hardware company wouldn't experience is because of crypto and speculation and tolerance for prototype devices, right? Like the standard is very low for devices in crypto. So that's a really good opportunity. But the double-edged sword is that like when the speculation is running dry, it doesn't matter how it looks. If somebody wants to earn money, they don't care how it looks. So, in terms of lessons learned, I mean, I wouldn't call it that there was a lesson here. I just think that, up and to the right is especially in consumer is not a thing to bank on. I wish I had been a bit more conservative when we were growing in the way that we thought about how we would grow beyond kind of our initial ramp up, right? And that, oh, we're just going to keep growing up and to the right forever. Like, inventory conversion cycles, cash conversion cycle, et cetera, where to spend money, this and that, all just regular challenges. So, I can't get too deep into those weeds because it's just like a ton of different challenges. In terms of specific lessons, I mean, look, this is again just kind of my reality as a consumer devices person. Getting too hooked on the name of the technology, I feel like has been a big distraction, and unfortunately that's just the reality in crypto. Even if I say, oh well, I'm just building consumer devices and Chia is an important part of the stack, what you can't really avoid is that there's a lot of reliance on Chia as a stack to perform economically for this product to work. That's a very difficult reality as a technologist to live in. So how would I have mitigated that, or what might I do differently? I mean, I don't know. That's what we're trying to solve all the time. If there was an easy answer, I don't want to say I would have found it already, but I would have understood it. I think the simplest thing out of all this, for consumer hardware that I think everybody quite well knows, the lack of recurring revenue in consumer is deadly. It hurts everything, cash conversion cycles, ability to engineer, etc. Apple has built a very robust services business. They have software that they make money off of in some way or another. We got to get there. And it's very difficult when, you're already kind of creating a product for your consumers where they're trying to save up as much money as possible after they purchase it to then say, hey, you should actually just pay me for more services. It becomes a deterrent. So maybe in hindsight, if I built into the product a more robust way to get recurring revenue, it would have it would have eased a lot of challenges. Uh, but most of the optimization for the last, for the whole product lifecycle was optimizing around ROI period, because that's one of the biggest things for the customer. So those two things were at odds. We decided to maximize on ROI. How important that will be going forward, I hope it's diminishing, but it is also the thing that will drive like ridiculous growth if that bet pays off. So I live in this world of fine lines, and I just got to accept that as the reality, and survive long enough to create the line and be able to draw the line, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, and excellent points for sure. And thank you very much for your time today. And yeah, that was the end of our questions, but I wanted to open the floor up to you, Dylan, and just kind of let you cover anything you wanted to cover. And I know you wanted to share a QR code. For those
Oh
still
yeah,
joining us, Dylan wanted to, there we go. Dylan wanted to share a QR code so everybody can get a free NFT. Of course, this is provided by Evergreenminer, and CNI
you
is
got to
not
download our app and
heard
create a
of it.
wallet, and then you got to hit the scan. So it might take a minute or two, but I guess what I could do is just put one of the QR codes up, and then whoever claims it first gets it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you should
Should I
have
just
a screen share capability now.
Well, I could just tweet it like and
Oh,
then
there
put
you
the
go.
link in. All right. So
Perfect.
give me a sec then. All right. So
Absolutely. You work
I'm
on
gonna-
that, and I'll do a little wrap up for us, and then I'll turn it back to you to explain what people will need to do in that regard. And so, yeah, so thank you, Dylan, for taking the time today. It was great talking with you about the Evergreen Miner, about your experience in crypto in general, and being an architect of hardware. I know myself, I'm fascinated with what you did in the design of the actual hardware of the Evergreen Miner and those fun Easter eggs that you've hidden in there, including the screws underneath the foot pads. Always a great touch there. And really appreciate you being open and receptive to always having us at CNI communicating with you, sharing your experiences and your insights with us. And also, any of the community out there who wanted to learn more about the Evergreen Miner, learn more about Dylan and his experience, feel free to connect with him on Twitter, in Discord, or directly through that Evergreen site. And anybody interested in those equity investment opportunities or working with Dylan to set up a enterprise solution, feel free to reach out to him in those regards as well. And
or collaborations and partnerships like Tangang esque custom NFT stuff. Love all of that. If you have a community that you think would be cool to have these devices, even if it's as small as 10 of them, doesn't matter. I want to explore that. So
absolutely, you heard it here from Dylan himself, and he has a special treat for anybody who is still paying attention. And it
we'll see.
sounds like it'll be a bit of a quick grab here.
Yeah, hopefully nobody on Twitter snipes it, but there is some you can't just bot it, right? So hold on, can I share the link or do you have it, Clyde?
I do not. Go ahead and share the link here.
Do I put it in? Where do I put it?
You
Oh,
can
the
put it
chat.
in the chat there. Yep.
Boom. Okay.
Perfect.
So
And
I
so
think you'll know
inside
if
of the
it's
chat.
claimed because it'll say it's already been claimed.
So what do people need to do when they go to this Twitter page here?
So you download the Evergreen Mobile. It's on the App Store. I could have left links, but just go look up Evergreen Mobile. Create a wallet or import your wallet. I would just create one, just keep it clean. And then there's like a QR code scan button in the middle of the app. Hit the scan the QR code, and the NFT will pop up and you'll hit claim. And then you have an NFT. And you can set it as the theme in the app. So I'll kind of do a demo. It's so hard to get this right. Maybe I just turn the brightness down. I think that maybe solves it a little bit. Ugh,
Let's try it.
sorry. All right, well, you can kind of see it. This is the Voss coin one. I
Uh,
can set the theme, and then my whole app theme changes to the Voss coin theme, which is hard to see, but yeah.
oh yeah, yep.
And then you can we're fixing this. It's been a couple months. Our coin switcher was needing maintenance, but you can claim coins every day, share the coins. They can whoever you share it with can redeem the NFT. We want to add some capabilities to what you can do with the coins at some point, but heads down, Clyde knows a lot of our work has been on infra and reliability versus new features. So
Mhm.
it is what it is.
Yep, and it all takes time for sure.
Yeah, we'll get
Well,
there.
absolutely. Are there any last thoughts that you want to leave the attendees with here?
Stay tuned. Have some cool stuff coming out. I'm sure a lot of folks listening have heard of Evergreen. So, if two things. One, if you're a DIYer, awesome. Maybe consider just getting a starter kit just to try it, just to be a developer, right? We want developers to build applications on these devices. It's your own piece of hardware. You can do whatever you want with it, and ideally we can share that. So if you're interested, you want to support us, right? A starter kit, 300, $400 just to try it. I think, I'm shamelessly plugging it, but go for it, right? A lot of people get frustrated. Oh, do DIY. It's more than that. Like we're really trying to create an experience that helps the DIYers in bringing more value. So if you think that you can help, by developing something, support us, buy one, and we'll work with you to do stuff. We really want to do that. The second piece is if you are a DIYer, we're releasing Fast Farmer. It's another way to support it, but I think it's just a much better farmer. It's the official, GigaHorse client, Chip 22, etc. We've worked for years building these clients. We want people to use it. We want to develop it. We want to develop it quickly. And in the same vein, if there's new features, we want to really be the premier farming client. Sorry, CNI, we want people to use, our farmer primarily. And as we get more adoption, we'll be able to do more competing stuff like alternative clients, alternative infrastructure. And just a quick couple notes on Fast Farmer while I have you. You can absolutely set your own node. There's no requirement to use our backend, but I think it's great, for farmers who are low on kind of capacity to run nodes, that if they want to use community nodes, awesome. I think that's a super net benefit to get people on. It uses a lot less memory, and it's got a really nice command line configuration, and we're gonna keep building. So it's kind of first release version 1, but we would really love people to try it, use it, see what they think, give us feedback. Even if they end up going, back to the official farmer, give it a try.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I know CNI has always held the stance that it's great to have more clients out in the environment in the ecosystem for people to utilize and really make it a decentralized experience. So thank you for all you and the team do to provide that experience to everybody else as well. We did have one last quick question from Draco. He's trying to get the QR code to work, and he's asking the QR code works only in iOS, no Android? Question
No,
mark.
Android works. The only weird thing, the QR code scanner in the app on Android isn't good. So you could download like an alternative in the Play Store and it's a little bit better. We're working on it, but yeah, sorry, Android. I have an Android, so like I'm not discriminating. It works a little bit better in iOS than Android. But if you're still there and you're trying to get it and it hasn't been claimed, you can download um, a different QR code reader from the Play Store. And look, if you didn't get it and you really want one, just DM me. I got you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Dylan, and appreciate the time today. I know I'll be in touch with you again about some other topics. And anybody else in the community, take advantage. Dylan, go ahead and message him, reach out to him, discuss more about Evergreenminer, and learn how you can get one of those NFTs for yourself as well. But thank you for your time today, Dylan, and we're going to go ahead and get it shut down. Do stay tuned, anybody else, for the rest of our events throughout the month. We have a lot of exciting interviews with different community members. We should also have a nice update from the CNI team near the end of this month as well. So looking forward to all those events and appreciate everybody who jumps in and stays around to participate. But have yourselves a wonderful day and thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone.